Not only the first ever release on Monstercat, but, as the name implies, the first dubstep one. Hey look, it's Varian before Varian. Thank God. The very first Electro House song, and arguably the most pointless use of the original mix subtitle, as there were never any official remixes for the song, or at the very least, ones that got released through Monstercat. My Baby's first What the Fuck. The very first drum and bass song on the label. The very first hard dance song on the label. The first and last time they changed the purple for their dubstep releases, as well as it being the song that officially began the colored bars tradition that stopped being a tradition 5 years later. I couldn't think of a better title myself. Peak Stephen Walking is unfortunately still a few years out. The first time the visualizer was invaded by a Nickelodeon slime. A title that even I wouldn't show to my parents, and I'm in my 20s. Hard dance has never been one of my favorite subgenres of EDM, but Neelio knew how to do it pretty damn well. Now introducing a name that will eventually become one of the most beloved artists in the entire Monstercat roster. Probably Superman's favorite dubstep song. One of the few instances where the title is more dated than the actual song. Monstercat finally learns what the color blue is, and after all this time I still don't know what a Tampopo is. This was how a lot of the D&B sounded during this era, so if you liked that, then you'll definitely like this. A song that debuted one of the more divisive artists on the label, which I find quite amusing considering I liked about half the stuff he put out. Jesus Christ, this song is so spacey I can see a neutron star forming over in the corner there. The first remix on the entire label. Cool. I read 15 grams, saw the number 46, and I immediately thought this was a recipe for something. Okay, for real with these titles. You know, if there was an arcade-style Monstercat fighting game from the early 2010s, this probably would have been the main theme. Project 46 and the color orange is a combination that happens so often it's pretty much burned into any Monstercat fan's memory by default. And the same goes for Eminence and the color blue. Speaking of liking half of the stuff Obsidia put out during his time on Monstercat, this is not that. The first time Stephen Walking pissed all over the screen, and what a way to do it. Hellberg's Monstercat debut, and if you'd like to apply what I said about Project 46 a few songs ago to this guy, then go right ahead. Now you're probably thinking, wait, what about the original? That's on this list, right? And I'd be like, nope. I always remember this song as being the first time Afixa held Monstercat at gunpoint. For those of you who only know Mr. Fiji Ouija from his more recent Monstercat ventures, yes, he has been around for this long. And I'd be lying to you if I told you weren't missing out. Oh, did I mention we had a pink color for drumstep? Think regular dubstep, but slightly faster. Little fun fact about this one, this is actually the first collab from two already established artists on the label. And yeah, the potential for having that information is just fucking incredible. Is it just me, or does pink form less of a faint red than it does a form of red that's just faint? I'll see myself out. Hey look, it's Varian, but actually Varian now. Yes, my favorite playground activity finally gets its own song. I was waiting for that. Arian's still here, and he brought elements of sanity with him. Thank God, because I was starting to wonder where Mai went. Statistically, this is what most spiders hear before they die. I lose sleep sometimes thinking about how this was Muzzy's introduction to Monstercat. This song right here actually marked the release of Monstercat's very first EP, which was Project 46's Limitless EP. Many argue that Afixa's Some Wobbles was technically the first since it came with the original as well as the Noirstorm remix. But with all the tracks here being original tracks bundled together instead of just being one single and a remix of said single, I think this one is more deserving of the term EP, even though I guess either isn't technically wrong. Considered to be one of the heaviest releases in Monstercat's history, but remember this is 2011 dubstep we're talking about here. Actually a really damn unique song for its time, and even today it remains as the true starting point for Muzzy, who would obviously go on to reinvent himself in the form of Muzz. This was where a legend was born. As the first track to his Christian the Lion EP, I think this was the song where Stephen Walking's creativity really started to shine through, screechiness included. The first ever EP release upload, basically meaning the song that was chosen as the YouTube upload, as the rest were released as part of the EP without an official YouTube upload. Stuff like this makes me glad that fan recreations of certain songs exist. One thing you gotta love about Stephen Walking is how random some of his song titles are. And I mean that. One of the most hidden gems you can find with old school Monstercat. Also, don't worry about that color yet, we'll talk about that in 2013. This ain't half bad, but if you forget about it by the end of the day, then I don't really blame you. If your first reaction to the song was trying to pronounce the name of it, then trust me, you're not alone. One of the first true Monstercat classics. And if you've ever watched Gold Glove back in the day, you've definitely heard this at least once. Sadly, this would be the last time we'd ever see Neelio on the label. And even sadder considering after this release, Monstercat practically had no hard dance on the label until a couple years later. And even then you wouldn't get much from the genre up until about 2015, but we'll get there when we get there. Statistically speaking, 2011 was not Hellberg's best year. Part 1 is called Scars, look it up. There are a surprising amount of songs from 2011 that still hold up pretty well nowadays. This song being a decent example. Surprisingly heavy for Project 46. Knowing what Resonate goes on to make, this is not the best way to introduce anyone to his music. Ironically speaking, people look back on this one quite fondly. Monstercat dropped a 6-track Christmas collection in 2011, and as the opening track, I just never got into this one personally. Oh Jesus. Okay, out of everything this Christmas collection had, this one was actually pretty dope. I like to imagine this was supposed to be a sequel to Run Away From Me, but it didn't get nearly as much attention. Forgot this one existed until making this video. Go figure. I mean, to be fair, most of this collection doesn't either, so... If I ever make a video about the 100 most essential Monstercat releases of all time, this would definitely be at least in the top 20. I don't think I've ever heard a single person say that their favorite Muzzy song is Dust Devil. For the longest time, I always thought 23's logo was just a triangle with a bunch of random lines going through it. But it's been a while since I've felt this dumb.